Welcome to Rauta, I am Jerry, and this time we go to the underground of Norwegian black metal part episode 23 or something. Now, as you all know, past year when I've been doing this series, every few weeks an episode out, 3 bands in question, long past overdue are the bands that are, like, all the big ones done, all the middle size done, pretty much all the smaller ones done. So what we have left in this episode is three demo bands. 3 demo bands that never made it far but still existed back in the 90s. Now originally I was planning to include only bands with at least one album out, but I thought like, what the hell? What the heck, let's do a couple of more episodes just for the sake of it, just for me to learn what I missed back in the days in terms of demo bands and maybe even tell you about a little about them to you as well. Now, because these are all demo bands, there is not really that much to tell. Perdition Hearse, Storm, not the big one you are talking about, and Irae. All of these, well, with the exception of Perdition Hearse, are the kind of bands which have similarities. So when you go for Metal Archive's site, you might bump into other bands, the wrong ones. Or when you just Google them, go to Discogs, you have to be really focused in order to find the right bands. So these are all black metal bands from the 90s. We're not even talking about, for example, in Storm's case, the more folk metal band, which I decided not to include in this series because they only did one album out, Norwegian, back in the 90s, and I already did a couple of years ago their only album review as a classic review. So I decided, okay, maybe there is nothing really to talk about it beyond that, since it's only one album project and all. But these 3 bands that I have here today are something that stirred back in the 90s a little bit, then vanished more or less, with the only exception maybe Perdition Hearse, which started already in the 80s, although under a different name, and then did some demos and whatnot back in the early 90s, and then more or less vanished. That is, they have done one video in 2005, according to Metal Archives, and then there's this Malafide compilation for 2019, but it's old material. So in terms of checking out the discography and all, sometimes this can be really misleading. Like here it says active from the 1992 question mark, whatever it means, and then coming back 2020 to present. Well, whatever it's coming back, there are no new releases whatsoever, so we can just consider it a band that basically did their stuff very early in the 90s. This is one of the bands that come from smaller cities, not the Oslo or Bergen area, where the area where the most bands come, or even Trondheim. But curious enough, they did a few demos, and of course you will see this name popping up every now and then. If you take a look at the members list, there's still a couple of old members from the past, and drummer Jonto from Ragnarok of other bands. So new member, and of course his main band is Ragnarok. Past members include quite a few members already back in the days, but whatever happened to these guys, whatever they did after that, with the exception of Miss Lord Byron, is pretty unknown, I guess. Maybe they didn't keep up with metal and all. So what is Perdition Hearse all about? They did one rehearsal tape, couple of demos and all that stuff. To be honest, makes no sense for me to really that much as a collect to these through, because there's not much to show. For example, this demo, 1 track. And if you go for Malafide, you will find more tracks. And these are then again recycled or reissued later on, like for example this Malafide compilation, True Nuclear War Now in 2019. So you have 37 minutes of music, but these are all taken from the previous releases, like this rehearsal tape and the demo that followed. Now, the point here is, this is one of very typical demo bands. There is not really much to talk about the quality of music or the production values. Back in the 90s, of course, a lot of bands didn't have much money to put on any kind of release. So it means like when these guys came out, very early, mind you, already some of the bigger bands, and now literally also bigger bands like Burzum, Doctor, and Enslaved Mayhem, whatever, they were already like doing albums when these guys popped up. That doesn't mean that they were like late to the party. Quite the contrary, a lot of bands were founded like years and years later. But also it means that this band was like buried by time and dust. Ding. By the time a lot of these bands founded. I'm talking about bands like Dimmu Borgir, which later on became a lot bigger, but they came late compared to these guys. But like I said, these guys were gone already by the time when a lot of those mid-90s or late 90s bands came to the sea, started making music and all. So what is the story with Perdition Hearse in terms of music? Very bare bone, very stripped down to basics kind of a black metal. It's not like the riffs were bad, but being normal, typical demo recording, it's just the kind of a basic stuff you don't really maybe get to enjoy. Unless you lived through the times back in the days. That is, if you were really already there, probably then you can take with the nostalgia these songs. But nowadays ears it feels like, yeah, they are not making a big impact because first of all, like I said, the production is very, very rehearsal room like, and the songs, while they are not bad, they are very basic, very mediocre, nothing really to speak of nowadays in terms of being fascinating or that you missed a big gem. Given enough time, probably these guys would have evolved something more important, more fascinating, better, simply said. But these demos, if you missed them back in the days, I guess I could say you didn't miss much. I certainly feel like I didn't miss much. It's more like a side note in the book of Norwegian black metal and nothing beyond that. Let's hope someday they will make a comeback, make a real album and all, but if I would to say based on my personal experience and all that stuff, I wouldn't put my money on it. But never say never. It's never too late to pick up an instrument and go on with it. Then we have this Another Storm, which is not to be confused with the band from Oslo, another band from Trondheim. One of them is heavy metal band, and the other one is the Super Project by Fenris and Satyr of Saturn and Kari Rueslotten. The one I mentioned having Nordavind album, a very good folk metal album, well, folk black if you want to stretch the definition of black metal. But this band from Stavanger, which also had some bands back in the days, still has, they released, according to Metal Archive information, only one demo called Winter Moon, which I just listened prior to making this video. It was the missing link for this one. I was surprised that this is only 8 minutes in total, 3 tracks, and very, very low quality on YouTube. I mean, it's very, very how to say, very silent. I mean, you have to kind of crank the notch up in order to figure out what is going on. It says raw black metal in the description, which is true in terms of production. When it comes to the music, it's quite basic Norwegian black metal. Not exactly super melodic, but kind of basic. Nothing like symphonic, nothing fast, nothing super raw. Just a kind of a basic Norwegian black metal. And seeing this coming out in 1993 means that they were probably very, very inspired by a lot of those bands that already had albums out. I'm once again talking about bands like Enslaved, Burzum, Dark Throne, probably Mayhem, even though Mayhem's debut wasn't out in 1993. But that is said, give it a couple of years and a lot of people will be like, wow, we're gonna do this as ourselves as well. And as such, Winter Moon demo is not bad. I mean, the production is very, very rehearsal room-like and all that stuff, so it's like kind of bad. But in terms of songwriting, there are potential ideas, some cool riffs and all that. But let's be honest about it, it's a very, very basic, very forgettable demo as well. I mean, even if you look past the production values, which are very, very low, you won't find anything like, wow, these songs are out of ordinary. Maybe back in 1993 it would have been some kind of eyebrows or movement like, hey, what's this band? But now, more than 30 years later, nope. There are just simply said thousands of bands which are, well, at least releases which are more interesting. This is nothing but a nostalgia thing by now. But like I said, this could have been another promising project if only they had kept going. It's nothing like what the hell are these guys doing in a wrong way, nor in a good way. Just kind of a basic demo tape, and that's all. And if you go for the lineup, this, much like in Perdition Hearse's case, doesn't really show other bands what there is to know. So it's like one of those bands like, I don't know, what happened? Maybe the guys got old. Maybe they were not interested in black metal in the first place. Who knows? There are so many stories just like that. Last and maybe not least is Dies Irae. And mind you, there are plenty of bands with the same name. Day of Wrath, sorry. And this is also one of those bands that released only one demo in 1990s. Founded in 1994, released the demo in 1994, never to be heard again. And here it once again says, last known lineup, 2 guys, no mentions about other bands and all that stuff. Here it says, what is this related to is Tartarus, what I mentioned, the symphonic black metal from Norway, and also Summoning Parnassus. Well, yeah, I kind of get it, because this is indeed what it said here, symphonic black metal / ambient. Well, I would take symphonic with question marks, because really when you have low budget demo level, calling it symphonic is kind of a, how to say, glorified very way to say it, meaning it's more like dungeon synth and, well, the basic melodic black metal. Calling it ambience is always like, I find it a little bit misleading. I would say this is if Mortis and Burzum prison era kind of stuff was put in together with some basic Norwegian or Nordic black metal, and you would get this Circle of Left demo. It's not bad by no means, but coming like 30 minutes or so, or more than that, it feels quite a stretch. To be honest, it's overextending its stay because the quality is not there. Obviously, partially the thing is, once again, very typical demo level, meaning the quality is not that good. I mean, it's listenable, but in my opinion, there's way too much all that second-rate synth stuff. If you compare it to early Dimmu Borgir, you might find some similarities. And for those people who like Dimmu Borgir early era, that is maximum 2 first albums, this might be the thing. But it also tries to go way too much classic. You can see it with the song titles also here, like, okay, this is like the guys have passion, they're aiming high, but it's also like, how can you really go for classical music with big orchestra and you have probably budget of shoelaces? So it's more like you're aiming too high way too early. When you don't have the skill, when you don't have the money, when you don't have the equipment for that, and you're like, okay. But there's one review saying 85%. Kudos to that. I would probably say something like 6 out of 10, to be honest. It's like work in progress. Could have been interesting at some point, but really this demo is very, very basic still in the given genre, which is, I think, more challenging, more demanding than, basic raw black metal thing. But if you're looking for something you missed back in the days, you want another dose of another Dimmu Borgir, then this could be really your cup of tea. Now, these demo bands listed means that probably a lot of you are not gonna check them out, and I totally understand why. The next episode will feature some more known bands, but also outside the typical scope of black metal. And by that episode, we should pretty much be done with the whole series after more than 20 episodes. Still, that being said, if there are bands I haven't included yet, and you want me to include in this series, drop me a comment in the comments box below and I will include it. But so far it seems all the pure black metal bands from the 90s Norway are now done, included in the series in over 23 episodes or whatever. So keep your eyes and ears peeled, and before you send me these recommendations, maybe you should check out what they are listed already in the video series. But like I said, go on with it, check out these bands, and looking forward to your comments. What do you think about these bands if you have time and urgent to check them out? If you can find them on streaming services like Spotify or whatever, they should be available on YouTube, at least for Dies Irae and Storm. You can just find them with proper keywording, the name of the band, the name of the release and all. And the same thing should apply to Perdition Hearse, but I think that's on Spotify, at least in one version, with the reissues and all. Now, off you go. Check out some Norwegian black metal or not. It's up to you. Links are in the description box for these Metal Archive sites. Good hunting.